Are we all back?
Yes, Mr. Examiner.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Griefen, I need to tell you, I'm trying to, I apologize if I was a little too testy. I am trying to balance giving you the leeway to make your case, but also kind of moving this matter along. So that's, I hope you take it in the right spirit.
Absolutely, Mr. Examiner. I appreciate what you had to say. I'm pleased to say that we were able to, Ronda Larson Kramer and I were able to work over the lunch break and condense her testimony somewhat. I also understand that in our post-hearing briefing, we will be allowed to discuss and cite and quote record documents, even if a witness hasn't specifically brought them up during the hearing or quoted from them.
Yes, I agree with that.
Okay, thank you. I'm
Sure,
ready to proceed, assuming you are.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, and I see Ms. Kramer. Thank you for coming back, Ms. Kramer.
You're welcome.
We had finished up before the lunch break with chapter 4 of the master plan update. What does chapter 5 of the MPU consist of?
Chapter 5 is a series of engineered plans that make up their airport layout plan.
And is there an exhibit in the record that describes the purpose of the airport layout plan?
Yes, that's exhibit 57, which is the FAA Advisory Circular 150-5070-6B. And the description of the airport layout plan purpose is at paragraph 1001A and paragraph 1001E subsection 2.
Thank you, and I will not ask you to read from that exhibit 57. Do you?
Well, I'm sorry, you said A, and then what was the second reference?
1001A and paragraph 1001E subsection 2.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Please feel free to jump in at any time. We'll try to move quickly, and sometimes that makes it hard to catch references.
You may regret saying that, but go ahead.
Like Ms. Newman, I welcome questions at any time. It gets me. I prefer a dialogue than a speech. Ms. Kramer, do the engineered site plans in Chapter 5 contain more detail than Figure 4-9 that we were looking at in Chapter 4?
Yes, the plan sheets precisely locate the areas designed for development under the preferred alternative.
Objection, she doesn't have the foundation to make those conclusions.
If the examiner would like, we can go through in detail and look at the sheet plans in Chapter 5. And in fact, I had intended to do that and compare them to Figure 4-9 in Chapter 4. But in the interest of time, I think the witness can fairly testify that according, let me ask a preliminary question.
Look, I'll allow her to testify as to her opinion about that, and I'll give it the weight it deserves. So go ahead.
Thank you. And just perhaps I should have asked first, did you review Chapter 5 and the site plans within it, Ms. Kramer?
Yeah, yes, I did.
Did you review all of the documents that you're testifying about today?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Examiner, we'll address Chapter 5 and its site plans in more detail in our closing brief.
Okay, very good.
Ms. Kramer, let's move on to Chapter 6 of the Master Plan Update. What generally is described in Chapter 6?
Chapter 6 is titled Facility Implementation and Financial Feasibility, and that outlines the required development sequence at the individual project level. And the chapter also presents specific projects categorized by their development phases. And the chapter discusses other strategic and non-aviation related projects. And that chapter is Chapter 6, and what I just said was at page 6-1.
Thank you. And does Chapter 6 mention SEPA anywhere?
As in Chapter 4, SEPA is not mentioned at all in Chapter 6. The agency says that for near-term development projects, a categorical exclusion is sufficient for evaluating the environmental impacts. And that is at page 6-4 of Chapter 6, which is also PDF page 5.
Thank you. And very generally, what information does section 6.2 of chapter 6 present?
Section 6.2 is titled Airport Capital Improvement Plan, and it organizes the development projects from the preferred alternative into near-term, mid-term, and long-term development phases. It also describes the cost of those development projects, and it adds detail to their description.
And what do the near-term projects include?
Near-term development projects include, but aren't limited to, runway and taxiway rehabilitation, installation of a new gas tank, and extending the footprints of hangars to, quote, utilize all buildable areas within the current hangar areas, unquote. And that's in Chapter 6 at page 6-9.
Thank you. And what do midterm projects include?
Midterm development projects include taxiway relocation and reconstruction, construction of new hangars, and construction of new taxiway and a new access road. And that is at page 6-12.
And what do long-term projects include?
Long-term development projects appear to consist mainly of pavement maintenance, and that is at page 6-12.
Thank you. Moving on from chapter 6, let's turn to appendix 4-1 of the 2021 master plan update. What very generally is appendix 4-1?
Appendix 4-1 is the Part 139 commercial passenger service feasibility study, and it examines the feasibility of accommodating commercial air service, which in other words is passenger service.
And why does the port say that this study is needed?
In this appendix, the port says the study is needed because, quote, the airport is prohibited from denying access to aircraft, and if an airline chooses to operate from the airport, then the airport would need to ensure compliance with safety and FAA standards are met. And that is at page 1 of appendix 4-1, which is PDF page 2.
And how does appendix 4-1 relate to the engineered site plans in chapter 5?
Much like the site plans in Chapter 5 that provide more detail on the preferred alternative, Chapter 4, Appendix 4-1 provides more detail than the site plans in Chapter 5. In particular, Appendix 4-1 provides greater specificity about anticipated development of the 54.5 acre area designated for commercial air service development. So if you look at figure 4-9 in chapter 4 and sheet 3 in chapter 5, they show where the passenger service expansion will go, but appendix 4-1 has the actual labels and building footprints corresponding to that expansion.
And can you give an example from appendix 4-1 or locate that for the examiner?
Yes, one good example is that in chapter 4 at figure 4-9, it shows a red shaded area labeled commercial air service 55 acres. The last page of appendix 4-1 is figure 4-4. This figure corresponds directly to the red shaded commercial aviation area in figure 4-9 of chapter 4, but it shows the labels and building footprints for where the port plans to build the passenger terminal, which it labels future terminal expansion on that figure, and the de-icing facility and the 610 parking spaces and the 6 new gates.
And does appendix 4-1 describe what the airport will need to do to meet FAA requirements for commercial service?
Yes, appendix 4-1 describes several things that the airport will need to do to meet FAA requirements for commercial service, and those include constructing a new commercial service terminal building with a minimum total size of 40,000 square feet. It also includes constructing a commercial apron with a minimum of 259,000 square feet to accommodate 6 gates and 9 total airplane parking areas and minimal taxi lanes, with the understanding that facilities and taxiway layouts may necessitate a larger apron. And it also says that it needs to have construction of new parking facilities with approximately 610 stalls to meet FAA safety requirements, or I should say requirements for commercial service. It also says it needs to construct a detailed commercial fuel farm with 2 25,000-gallon fuel tanks for Jet A fuel and 1 25,000-gallon tank for sustainable aviation fuel. It also says that it will need to set aside approximately 5,000 square feet for ground support equipment storage and parking. And finally, it says it needs to construct a de-icing pad on the commercial apron with a total square area of 40,000 square feet approximately.
And are these requirements that you just enumerated summarized anywhere in Appendix 4-1?
Yes, there's a summary table at section A.3.8, which is on page 15 of the second half of Appendix 4-1, which is PDF page 38. I want to clarify something about the pagination in Appendix 4-1. There's an error in the pagination in 4.1. The page numbering starts over halfway through the document. So when I'm referring to the pages, the printed pages, I will differentiate which page I'm referring to by saying first half or second half. So the thing that I just said was at page 15 of the second half of Appendix 4-1.
Thank you for that. Does Appendix 4-1 make any conclusions about the feasibility of providing commercial air service at this airport?
Yes, Appendix 4-1 concludes that adding satellite commercial service from Olympia Airport to a Western U.S. hub is extremely feasible. And that's the choice of words it uses. And that is at page 13 in the first half of Appendix 4-1, and it's PDF page 14.
Thank you. Does Appendix 4-1 contain any analysis of environmental impacts from the facilities that OLM would need to upgrade or build to best support its forecasted number of passengers and operations?
Yes, a short analysis of environmental impacts is included in Appendix 4-1, and that's at table A-11, starting on page 21 of the second half, which is also PDF page 44.
Does that short environmental impacts analysis mention SEPA at all?
No.
What does that short analysis of environmental impacts say, if anything, about impacts to wildlife?
Under the heading Fish, Wildlife, and Plants, at table A-11 on page 22 of the second half, which is also PDF page 45, it states, and this is the last thing I'm going to read directly, quoting, it states, quote, permits can be issued to take an endangered species by causing harm to the species or its habitat. In this case, take is expected to result from new development, from maintenance of city and port facilities, and from maintenance performed at the conservation reserve sites, unquote.
Thank you. I have no further questions on direct for Ms. Larson Kramer.
Thank you. Counsel for the port.
Yeah, good afternoon, Ms. Kramer. My name is Chris Pierce-Wright. I'm counsel for the Port of Olympia. I appreciate your testimony today. I have just a few questions for you. I think I want to start with, you testified at the beginning of your direct examination about your background. Have you ever previously worked yourself on an airport master plan?
Nope.
Have you ever been part of an organization that has worked on an airport master plan?
No.
Have you ever provided expert testimony on an airport master plan?
No.
Have you ever provided expert testimony on compliance with the State Environmental Policy Act?
No.
Have you ever previously worked at an airport?
No.
Do you have any licensing related to aviation?
No.
Other than preparing for this hearing and your opposition to the current airport master plan, do you have any experience with aviation circulars produced by the FAA?
Other than, could you say the first clause of your sentence?
Other than your opposition to the airport master plan, do you have any experience with aviation circulars produced by the FAA?
No.
You testified earlier about the Swire lease, is that correct?
Yes.
The Swire lease was executed prior to the current proposed airport master plan at issuing this appeal. Is that right?
I'm gonna answer that with a two-part question. So this master plan was created in 2021. That's why it's called the 2021 master plan. The Swire lease was signed in 2022. The port, for unknown reasons, did not decide to update the plan to include the Swire lease, even though it should have. So yeah, that's the chronology.
So I guess we can walk through those steps. The current master plan update under appeal has not been formally approved by the port. Is that correct?
That's correct, but the draft is there.
Right, and the Swire lease has been executed. Is that correct?
Yes, after the draft was drafted and 3 years before present. So there was a lot of time to add it.
How do you think that the omission of the Swire lease from the airport layout plan is significant?
Yes.
Objection. That's the legal question. Significance under SEPA is a legal question. She's not giving legal testimony.
If Mr. Griefen wants to undercut the entirety of his direct examination, I suppose that's fine. I agree, but it's one way or the other.
Well, first she answered before the objection was put in, but that happens.
Pardon me.
No, it's okay. It happens. Even when the objector is trying to make the objection soon. Second, I'll allow him to ask the question with the understanding that the term significance is not used in the context of applying in the context of SEPA itself, or the guidelines, or even the SEPA resolution. I'm talking too much here, maybe, of the commission, but in her own view, related to her testimony of concerns about whether the documents adequately have considered. Not legally.
Thank you, and I'll withdraw my objection. Okay. And Ms. Kramer, feel free to answer.
Okay, I probably talked too long. Do you want to re-ask the question? Do you want to ask the question or vary it a little bit?
Sure, and I think my question was less directed at SEPA and more FAA requirements. Do you view the omission of the Swire, whatever building might be there, from the ALP as significant with respect to what the FAA needs or need not approve?
The FAA has not approved the ALP, and therefore it's premature for me to speculate. It would be improper to remove it or have it omitted once the ALP is submitted to the FAA for approval.
So I'll represent to you, and I guess we can look at it. The FAA has approved the ALP.
So my understanding is that the FAA's approval of the ALP that you're talking about is the ALP prior to anything to do with Swire. So I guess if it's already approved that and Swire was already in place at the time of that approval, then that was an omission. But again, that's a legal question and it's not for me to say. But seems to be a problem.
So I'm going to show you what was marked as Exhibit 31. You recognize this document?
Yes, that is the Swire lease.
Great. I'm going to scroll down to page 2. You can see here it says initial term. The first two sentences of this paragraph state the initial term shall be 50 years with an option for an additional period of 25 years, provided that if there is not a final Section 163 determination of non-aeronautical property by the Federal Aviation Administration with respect to the property, then the lease shall not go into effect. My question is, do you know what a section 163 determination is?
I do now. But I'm not going to tell you because that would be a legal statement.
How
So
do you
yeah,
mean you do now?
I'm guessing, are you asking me to tell you what a section 163 determination is?
Do you have any familiarity with what that determination is?
Well, my familiarity is from what you're showing me right now. So I would guess the answer is no. Before this, no, but I do now.
Okay. You testified earlier about part 139 approval in the context of appendix 4-1 of the master plan update. Do you recall that?
Yes.
What is your understanding about what is required for an airport to receive part 139 certification from the FAA?
I don't know. I really don't. That's way beyond my expertise. And I'm not sure that really relates to the case either.
Well, you testified earlier, just a second ago, about the airport's attempts to provide commercial airline service and a Part 139 feasibility study. I wonder what the basis is for your conclusion that the airport can legally provide commercial airline service.
Because it did before. It had the certification before, and then it just decided to drop it because the airlines pulled out. They weren't making enough money. So since it had it before, it can easily get it again. It's a very easy certification to get.
Have you ever received a Part 139 certification?
No, I'm going off what I heard Warren Hendrickson say about it. So it's something that you just drop if you're not going to have passenger service. And then when you want to have passenger service again, then you just get recertified. So it's not a huge hurdle.
No further questions for this witness.
Mr. Griefen, do you have any redirect?
No redirect. Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
Okay, I don't have any questions. I want to thank the witness and Mr. Griefen for speeding up the afternoon testimony. But thank you, Ms. Kramer, for your testimony.
You're welcome.
Who's the appellant's next witness?
Our next witness is Sharron Coontz.
Think I'm here? Here I am.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
Are you under Norton?
Yes.
That you? Okay.
Yes, I live in the boonies with really bad service, so I
Yeah.
thought I'd better come to town.
I gathered that from your declaration. Could you raise your right hand, please, for me?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Coontz, do you affirm that you'll tell the truth and nothing but the truth in the matter before me?
I do.
Okay, go ahead, counsel.
Thank you. And
Before you start, Mr. Griefen, just for time management, do you have any idea how long this might take?
This will be substantially shorter than Ms. Larson Kramer's testimony.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Coontz, please state and spell your name for the record.
Sharron, Sharron, for no reason that I know. Coontz, Coontz.
And where do you live, Ms. Coontz?
12417 Tilley Road South in Olympia.
And how long have you lived there?
Full-time for at least 12 years, part-time in the house right next door for all the other years of my life except one. And can I just say, I know earlier the hearing examiner asked if we were reading from stuff, and I kind of am looking down because I'm a little nervous. I hope that's okay that I look at my previous responses and stuff.
No, that's, I think it's okay if there's an objection.
Okay. Thanks.
You don't object to me. Wait, you don't object to me looking down periodically.
We don't object to you looking down periodically, Mr. Examiner.
Okay,
thank you.
Go ahead.
And by the way, it may be obvious, but I have another screen off what is to me my left. So when my head's turned, I'm still paying attention. I'm just looking at documents or notes.
Well, that's the same true here. I have screen and notebooks. So go ahead.
Thank you. Where is your home, Ms. Coontz, in relation to the Olympia Airport?
It's almost due south by 3 miles.
Okay. And you're within, you're familiar with the master plan update? Have you looked at it?
Yes, and I'm in their official airspace,
Great.
the OLM airspace as defined in that master plan.
Thank you. And did you submit a declaration with the prior briefing in this case?
Yes.
Ms. Coontz, can you tell us how you first became familiar with the Port of Olympia Airport and the issues involving it?
Yes, in about 2007, I got involved in trying to save some really valuable prairie land next to the Department of Fish and Wildlife's wildlife preserve, at West Rocky Prairie. And I helped found a group called the Friends of Rocky Prairie. The Port of Olympia had an interlocal agreement right then with the Port of Tacoma, who wanted to put a huge truck and train logistics center there called the South Sound Logistics Center. And during that time, I worked with Ken Berg, who was the manager of U.S. Fish and Wildlife back then, and the director of Fish and Wildlife, who was named Jeff Koenings, and their agency's biologists. And I learned a lot about prairie species, such as the federally and state-listed threatened pocket gophers and the endangered streak-turned larks that lived on West Rocky Prairie and are also on the airport property that we're discussing now. I learned of other rare and threatened species such as prairie butterflies and facts about the importance of saving our still functional prairie system because it's not that big anymore. And that included, of course, getting more familiar with one of the better prairies, which is part of the airport, of course.
Thank you. And did learning about and working to protect and save prairies and protected species lead to you having more involvement with the Port of Olympia's plans?
Yes. After we stopped the development of the South Sound Logistics Center, I and someone you heard mentioned the other day from Black Hills, well, that would have been yesterday, Sue Danver, and then who was with Black Hills Audubon and recently passed away. Sorry, just the 30th, it's a little fresh. And another citizen, Jan Witt, and I, we all went to the port's executive director at the time, Ed Galligan, and we told him our concerns about the port's history of not always following SEPA, the SEPA regulations. And he was impressed and invited us to work with the commissioners of that time. Back then, it was a commission of only 3, and with staff as they planned a new revised SEPA policy for the port to follow. This was in 2013 and 14. And they were very open with us and very nice with us. They allowed us to comment freely. They had us in work sessions where we could argue our points. And the port was even okay with letting Black Hills Audubon Society bring in their own attorney to advise us all as we worked to craft a good SEPA policy.
And where is that SEPA policy memorialized, if anywhere?
It's Appendix A to the port's resolution 2015-12.
And what is resolution 2015-12?
Well, that's where they the port sets out its SEPA policies and procedures. And it was attached to Appellants' response to the port's motion for summary judgment as attachment A.
Thank you. And so you're saying you played a part in coming up with the port's current SEPA policy, including its requirements to address climate change impacts?
Absolutely. And the 3 of us were allowed to play a big part in that. And it's a policy we were and are very proud of because we all worked hard to make it relevant to a changing world. And the commissioners ended up passing it unanimously, even though one at first was quite shy of this sort of letting us be part of this and so on. For the first time, they included a requirement that the port consider climate change and the effect of greenhouse gases in all their SEPA investigations. Sadly, I I'm not aware of the port having done so, but I haven't read everything, but I have not seen it done. And they certainly did not consider either climate change or greenhouse gases effects in this SEPA of the airport master plan or its update that we're discussing today. And that makes me very sad too.
Have you reviewed the port's mitigated determination of non-significance? It's in the record as Exhibit 2.
I have. It's been a little while, but yes.
To your recollection, does that MDNS include the word climate anywhere?
I couldn't find it, no.
Does that MDNS include the term greenhouse anywhere?
I did not find it anywhere.
Have you also reviewed the port's SEPA environmental checklist, record Exhibit 3?
Yes.
Does that checklist include the word climate anywhere?
I couldn't find it, no.
How about the word greenhouse in the checklist?
Couldn't find it. So no,
So
I guess.
I'm guessing this is a given, but if it didn't mention climate or greenhouse, did you find any analysis of the likelihood of climate change impacts or greenhouse gas emissions?
Not in any analysis. I did find a mention of it somewhere. Would you like me to point that out?
Sure. How, if at all, does the master plan update mention climate or greenhouse gas emissions?
Yeah, because it doesn't really address them. It just mentions them in the MPU very briefly, and I have to look down and read for sure. Chapter 4, page 4-32, comma, table 4-1, and it states that, quote, oh, I'm reading from a document. It's just real short.
Okay, it'll be short.
It's very short. Federal standards for aviation-related GHG emissions are still being developed, end quote, and that, quote, air quality will be addressed as part of any future NEPA review, end quote.
Thank you. And does that language appear again in Appendix 4-1?
It does, exactly that language. There's a discussion of emerging technologies, which touches on climate and greenhouse gas emissions at Appendix 5.1 of the MPU also, but no mention of greenhouse gases emissions or climate impacts related to review under SEPA.
Thank you very much. Let's move on from climate change and greenhouse gases. Did you read the port's motion for summary judgment?
I did, but don't quiz me on too much.
Well, I'm going to read you a quote from it. On page 21 of the port's motion for summary judgment at line 21, the port says, quote, the 2021 AMPU does not propose any development, end quote. Does that remind you of anything?
Sadly, yes. Over the years, the port has repeatedly stated that that no changes were planned to the airport, and then gone ahead and implemented changes to the airport without conducting an environmental review.
Can you
I'll raise
give me
the same objections I did previously to the history analysis.
So the record's clear. Could you restate the reason for your objection?
Sure. Previously, we talked about documents from 1994 impacting and effectively being used as impeachment testimony through appellants' witnesses. I'll just raise the same objection that that's not a proper basis for impeachment or process for impeachment.
Well,
leave it there.
In addition, I have her declaration in front of me, and I think in general, there's the same statements, sort of statements are made. And again, I don't misinterpret what I'm saying. They're conclusory without any reference to any particular decision, document, or a date or anything. So I'll allow the answer to stand, but I'll give it the weight it merits.
Sure. Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mr. Examiner.
I don't want to cut off the witness or your case, but
I believe the witness is going to explain her understanding of the port's past promises that nothing would change, and then describe how things changed. I expect that would take a total of less than 5 minutes. I'd like to let her say her piece, but if that's going to excessively annoy the examiner, we could
No,
move past it.
No, I wouldn't say it's going to do that. I'm going to allow her to talk about it, but I will tell you that in addition to what I just said, I think the port's objection includes, I'm assuming that talking about past behavior, whether you can identify when it occurred and how it occurred and that sort of thing, or past statements, may have limited relevance to what I'm reviewing now in current actions. But I understand your argument that there may be a pattern. And so within limits, I'll allow you to ask questions in that regard, but I'll just leave it at that.
Sure, and I can, my expectation is that this portion of Ms. Coontz's testimony would take less than 5 minutes, and probably the entirety of the rest of her testimony would take less than 10 or 15 minutes.
No, that's fine. And again, I don't want to characterize her testimony or determine, say that I have a determination about the issues, but I will say this, even if, and maybe I'm saying what the court's going to say, even if a person or an organization has had a pattern of activity, that doesn't mean that they can't break the pattern at a certain date. And so I'll accept it for limited purposes. So you go ahead.
Thank you very much. Ms. Coontz, thank you for bearing with us there. You had just said that the port's statement that the 2021 MPU does not propose any development reminded you of something. Can you give us an example? Can you explain or give us an example?
Well, what was the last thing I had said to you? Was that they have a pattern of this, or no? Yes, I told you that they've implemented many changes since then, right? But this example actually requires a tiny bit of background if you'll put up Exhibit 8.
I'm not going to put up exhibits,
No?
but
Okay.
I have
Just
them with me, and I think your notes may have quoted from them. You can refer to your notes. The examiner has all the exhibits as well.
Oh, okay. So it was an article in the Olympian where the port explains their expansion plan, and it states that the port had plans to acquire 44 parcels of land, 44 acres of land, I think, maybe, I can't remember, near the airport to, quote, enhance the economic development of the Olympia Airport.
Thank you. And for the record, this is Exhibit 8 that she's discussing.
So just so we're clear, and maybe I'm not totally clear, I have not allowed this exhibit. The port's objected to it. I know she's now quoting from it, and not only from the article, but I think is now or will be quoting some representative of the port who a reporter, I'm going to have to assume, and it's really hearsay, took down accurately and occurred 31 years ago. So I'll allow you, just so the port knows, I'll allow you to question her about this, but I'll have to give it the weight it deserves and see how it ties into my final decision making.
Understood, Mr. Examiner. Thank you. So that article came out. How did you and the other neighbors react?
Well, I wasn't actually involved at that point. I was quite far south. My mom's oldest best friend was really unhappy because she was losing her farm. That's a little bit at jumping ahead. The neighbors ended up very frightened and outraged, and they packed Port Commission's meetings and expressed that, and that was covered in Exhibit 7. Again, that's an article in the Olympian, so perhaps that's not one you're going to allow in, but I think it was headlined "Port Plans to Evict Residents," and it was also back in 1994, which to me is relevant because that was the last time there was an environmental impact statement around the airport, but we can get to that.
Why don't you move on to that?
Let me say, and I don't want to be flippant. I'm not, my basis for not allowing it is not that it was in the Olympia. I've been a reader of the Olympia for about 50 years, but I'm allowing you to refer to it, and it apparently has an impact on your analysis of the matter in front of me today. So, but it was another matter. It was a long time ago, and it's based on an article that I haven't admitted yet. But you go ahead and continue to testify.
Okay, thank you.
What happened the month after that article, Exhibit 7, came out?
Well, the very next month, the port issued its final and what do they call it? Final and environmental impact statement for its strategic plan. And that was Exhibit 13.
And Exhibit 13, Mr. Examiner, is the FEIS, or Final Environmental Impact Statement for the port's strategic plan. It's the last FEIS, most recent FEIS in the record.
Right. And that, if you scroll to the PDF, it's page 4, but it's numbered 3. Sorry.
What does it say there?
It says Airport Master Plan Update, an amendment of the Port of Olympia Master Plan, Airport Master Plan 1990 is underway. Quote, no significant modifications to the existing airport operations are being considered as part of that update.
And what happened after that?
Well, lots of things. Those houses that they were threatening to take, they did. They got about 200 acres of land by using eminent domain for economic development.
And I'm not going to put these exhibits up on this. Well, let's take it as it comes. Are there exhibits in the record that show the effect of the eminent domain action to the south of the airport?
Yeah, there's Exhibit 16 and 17. Exhibit 16 shows Case and Tilly roads, which were 2 roads that were moved and rearranged at this point. So it shows it in 1990 in Exhibit 16, what it looked like back then. And then in Exhibit 17, it shows it in 2022.
Thank you. And Mr. Examiner, these were admitted en masse at the beginning of the hearing.
Well, and I'm assuming, Exhibit 13, there's an objection to me admitting it. I'm assuming you're going to want it admitted, Mr. Griefen.
Yeah. Yes, please.
And I hope I'm clear on this. I know the port's objected to it. I'm going to admit Exhibit 13, if only for as historic background of environmental analysis on port matters. I'm at this point, I'm not sure I'm going to consider it for anything other than that. But it is an environmental document, deals with the port. It's admittedly 31 years old. So I'm not sure what arguments the appellant's going to make about it. You may already have in your motions the memorandums, but just so the port knows, I recognize their objection, but I'll admit it at least for to give some historical background about environmental analysis of port properties, but with the understanding that it's aged and it'll have to, and somehow it's going to have to be tied into the arguments dealing with the MD&S now. But I'll admit that now.
Thank you. And we understand agencies like people can change their course. And just to clarify, the exhibits 7 and 8, which were the 1994 Olympian articles, I believe you said those are admitted for the limited purpose of the effect that they had on appellants or some of them?
No, I'm not admitting them yet. I mean, this is strange. I'm allowing her to testify about them. I'm going to look at them, which I haven't, to see if I want to admit them.
Okay, fair enough.
I mean,
so
look, generally, for purposes of appeal, so that people don't say I excluded something. I mean, this, it often, I'll admit matters and give them less weight than other matters. So I can do that. But I'm not admitting those 2 yet. I need to review them.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. And, a shorthand of I'm going to admit this and give it the weight it deserves comes through loud and clear on this end.
Well, I tend to do that generally. The respondent may not like that, but but I may not do that for every exhibit. So on those two, I'm not admitting them yet.
Okay. Ms. Coontz, back to you. You had just read a quote from the 1994 FEIS for the strategic plan that said no significant modifications to the existing airport operations are being considered. What happened after that?
Well, as I think I mentioned, first the port seized approximately 200 acres of land by using eminent domain for economic development. And I showed you the indications of the roads, the exhibit that showed those roads that were moved, and those houses are missing in the later picture.
Thank you. And let me jump in. Those are exhibits 16 and 17.
16 and 17.
And they were not objected to at the outset. Did the port itself describe this seizure of land or obtaining of land through eminent domain in any exhibit?
Yes, Exhibit 28, Port of Olympia Development Guidelines. If you want to show that or just refer people to that.
You can just tell us
Okay.
in a sentence or less what it says.
Yeah, it states in 1994, I'm quoting now, so I'm going to read it. In 1994 and 1995, the port acquired additional property from property owners north and south of its existing holdings in the area of Case and Tilley roads.
And Case and Tilley roads are the roads that are depicted in 1990 and then in 2022 in Exhibit 16 and 17?
Yes.
Thank you. Were there other changes that were implemented at the airport after the 1994 FEIS?
Yes. When the FAA said that part of the airport, now I'm interpreting what Doug Sandow, who was the director of the airport at that time, this is what he said, and I believe we have him quoted in another newspaper article. Sorry. Anyway, he said that the FAA said that certain parts of the runway were not available for certain uses because it was too close to Highway 99. And he pointed out that the runway also would not accommodate the bigger, heavier jets that were now increasing in popularity. And so at that time, the port shifted several hundred, and it's hard when you read, they do use different quotes of how many exact yards they actually changed, or feet rather, over the years. So I've seen a few different things. So I'd say many hundreds. It's between 400 and 700, depending which piece you read of his. And they shifted that runway. And when I say that, that sounds as if they moved it. Well, they don't move it. They leave the other impermeable surfaces where they are, but they shift the angle by adding another several hundred feet to make up for the fact that it didn't seem safe at the time and they needed a different angle for either the takeoffs or the landings, and I'm not sure which. So they added that, and with it's 150 feet in width so that the runway's angle was safer. And then they added an actual new 81 foot long, and there was no ambiguity about that figure, long section to lengthen the runway to enable the new generation of the corporate jets, according to the port director Sandow. And that's covered or discussed in Exhibit 61.
Thank you. And Mr. Examiner, Exhibit 61 is an Olympian article from 2000. I believe the port objected to that one too. Do I understand that you're going to withhold ruling on the admissibility of these newspaper articles?
I am, although I'll tell you, I was thinking, when I was in your position or the position of the port lawyers, I sometimes would cite newspaper articles in my briefs, and memos. So and they weren't stricken because I cited them. But I'm not going to introduce as an exhibit I'm going to read these articles. I mean, I may be over worrying about them, but they're really here. The newspaper articles in a sense are hearsay, and especially when they quote somebody. And I'll look at them. I may end up admitting them and just giving them the weight they deserve, but I'm not going to admit them right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My only point is that we haven't written our closing brief yet. It may be that we want to refer to something in one of these articles.
You'll know before that point whether I admitted it.
Much appreciated. Thank you, Mr. Examiner. So, Ms. Coontz, when the port now says that the 2021 AMPU does not propose any development, do you think that's credible?
Well, not to me, it's not credible.
And did you raise this concern with port staff?
Well, I did. I asked Airport Senior Manager Chris Paolini about some of my concerns earlier this year, both verbally and in writing.
And what did he say to you?
Well, I've got to say he was very forthcoming. He answered all my questions. But I must say that when I was expressing alarm at all the new construction indicated in the master plan and the master plan layout, he replied in writing, Exhibit 30 shows what he replied to me. Can I go ahead and read it?
If it's limited to a sentence, sure.
I think so. The master plan update presents conceptual development possibilities based on efficient use of a designated area. However, those conceptual layouts are not a proposal or a planned course of action.
And do you think that's credible?
I don't want to, no, not to me. I'm afraid it's not credible to me, given my years of experience with the port and their continued piecemealing of projects without addressing cumulative impacts. Mr. Paolini is still relatively new to the airport, so maybe he doesn't know all that history, but that is what the port has said in the past. And then it's gone ahead afterwards with those so-called conceptual projects without analyzing the impact, or they didn't even call them conceptual. Sometimes they said, oh, no, we're just, doing a wish list or something over the years. And they've not analyzed the impacts, the cumulative impacts, especially of all the projects that they have done in the past.
Thank you. And are you familiar with exhibits 18 and 19? These are titled Airport Information White Paper. They come, 18 is part 1 and 19 is part 2 of that white paper.
Yes.
Did you help create those exhibits?
I was just going to say that's why I'm familiar with them, because I helped create them, yes.
And do those exhibits summarize and explain your concerns about the port's 2021 master plan update?
Yes, because in 1994, as we've just been talking about, the Port of Olympia conducted its last environmental impact statement for the port's strategic plan. It hasn't done one in that many years. My math's not good. Is that 30 years, 31 years? It ends with these words. It says, the airport is not proposed for any change. Since that time, they've demolished a neighborhood, relocated a county road or two, shifted and extended runways, built new hangars, and added runway lighting, increasing lighting pollution. So it's hard for me not to be a little cynical about this latest
Thank you. And
iteration.
those changes that, I'm sorry.
Sorry, it's hard for me not to be cynical about this latest iteration. I'm sorry.
That's quite all right. Are those changes that you just described further described in Exhibit 18?
Yes.
And are you concerned?
I'm sorry, I can't remember it's part 1 or 2, but it was a 2-part exhibit, I think.
Exhibit 18 is part 1
of the
white paper.
Oh, gotcha.
And are your concerns about the current master plan update further described in Exhibit 19? That's part 2?
Yes, spelled out there.
Mr. Examiner, I move for the admission of Exhibits 18 and 19.
So they've been objected to. I've got 18 on my screen now. Mr. Pierce-Wright or Mr. Aneker, do you want to restate your reason for objecting? Well, before you do that, let me say with regard to 18, it says, I'm looking at it. It says we disagree. For example, there I think it says we. I was wondering who authored these and who the we are. So let me see if 18 is the same. They deal primarily with the CACC that reported 2 years ago to the legislature. So with 18, Ms. Coontz, who is the we? Who prepared this document?
That would be me and Jan, Jan Witt, WITT. And yes, one part of it is mostly directed at the CAC, the CACC, as you called it,
Right.
because at that time they were considering enlarging or putting a new airport down in Olympia, and the port staff was telling us that, well, we could enlarge and carry some of that traffic, but no, we won't. We won't be a new Seattle, but we could take some of their their overflow. Sorry.
So unlike 18, 19 says Airport Information Part 2. It says a report by concerned citizens of Thurston County. Are those
Yes.
are the concerned citizens you and who?
Jan Witt. Yeah, we actually wrote it up after meeting with several port activists. There's two groups in town who are concerned about what the port and the airport future. And so we met with activists from those groups to get their opinions too, but we consolidated it into what we believed was absolute truth and went from there.
Okay, I'm going to hear from the attorneys for the port.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Hair Examiner. So both documents purport to provide some analysis of impacts. So noise impacts, impacts on wildlife, that sort of thing. They're effectively advocacy documents provided by people without any expertise, advocating for a position, which is fine. It's just not admissible evidence. Is not the type of evidence that someone would look to reach a conclusion about its contents. I don't think it's probative of what you're trying to consider here. Exhibit 18 it is about a different entity undergoing a different analysis. There's been no attempt to link it to what's going on here other than generalized opposition to airport activity.
Well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. To the extent that they help explain the current the testimony of Ms. Coontz and her how would I say it, her outlook towards airport expansion and possible expansion in Olympia. I will admit them for that limited purpose. Mr. Pierce-Wright, I understand, and your objection, I am not going to rely on them for no offense, Ms. Coontz, I'm not going to rely on interpretations of these statutes and all, but I do think they help explain her, I hate to use the word attitude, but her position on the issues we have and why she was historically involved in this. So I'm admitting them for that purpose.
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. I have no further questions for Ms. Coontz.
Mr. Pierce-Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner. Ms. Coontz, my name is Chris Pierce-Wright. I'm attorney for the.
Sorry, I started to turn the thing off. Sorry.
Oh, don't do that.
No, sorry.
I just have some questions for you. You testified just now about concerns related to past changes implemented by the port. One of those was condemnation of property. Is the Port of Olympia proposing to condemn any private property as part of the 2021 master plan update?
They've not said so.
One of your concerns was related to relocating a county road. Is the Port of Olympia proposing to relocate any roads, any county roads as part of the 2021 master plan update?
They've not indicated so.
You argued or were concerned about lengthening of a main runway. Do you know if that is proposed as part of the 2021 master plan update?
I would have to say I don't know that. I did not see that indicated.
You were concerned about changing the angle of a runway. Have you seen anything in the master plan update that suggests that is being proposed?
Wait, are you saying I said I was concerned about that happening?
I thought you testified earlier that the angle of a runway was changed. I don't
was
recall when
changed.
exactly.
Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't hear you go into the past tense there. I thought you said I was still concerned about it happening. No, I haven't seen that indicated in the master plan. But then it wasn't it wasn't in previous documents from the port that they were going to do it either. So I don't really rely just on the master plan at this point for my truth.
You said you were concerned that in 1994, the port said that it would not increase operations and then subsequently did. Is that correct?
I do not remember saying that exactly. Let's see what we.
Here, I'll share with you Exhibit 13. You said you were, I don't know if you can see that, this highlighted, I don't know if you added that highlight, says no significant modification to the existing airport operations are being considered as part of that update.
And what's your question?
Can you identify what your concern was with respect to that statement?
Well, it's my concern is that they've said that so many times in the past that and there's one in 1990 saying no significant modifications are being considered, and in fact all sorts of things happened, like all the things that I just went through, the modifications and changes that were made. I imagine that's why it's highlighted. I don't remember highlighting it, but that doesn't mean much. It could have been, I could have done so.
Are you aware of what an airport operation is?
Yes, I think
What
so.
is that?
Each landing and each takeoff is an operation.
Are you aware of what the airport's annual operations were in 1994?
I used to be. I'm afraid I can't think of it off the top of my head. You want to help me out?
Are you aware of what they are today?
Again, it's written here someplace, but I don't have it. You know, this sounds like a cop-out, everybody. I'm just going to tell you, long COVID, brain fog, real. I've got it. I've had it. It's annoying. I can't think of it off the top of my head. If you want to refresh my memory, that's fine. I know that here's what I do remember, if this is helpful at all. And that is that when Warren Hendrickson talked to us, when he was still the head of the airport, he talked about the number of operations we had now. And we said the changes that you're proposing in the master plan would allow far more than that, 313 landings a day and 313 takeoffs a day. And that is a huge increase from what we're doing right now. He was then later quoted in the newspaper saying, I don't know where she gets those figures. And I said, I got them from you, remember? And he apologized and said, yes, okay, sorry. Or maybe he wasn't quoted in the newspaper. He was talking to the newspaper man. Go ahead, sorry.
Sure. Do you have any experience with managing an airport?
Well, no. In fact, let me just, all your next questions as to whether I'm an expert. The answer is no, I do not fly a plane. I don't manage an airport.
Do you have any understanding about what goes into calculating airport operations?
You mean the capability of operations or just the figure itself?
The number of operations at an airport.
Do I know what they are? Yes.
What goes into calculating them?
Yeah, they count if a plane lands, that's one operation, as it was explained to us by Mr. Hendrickson. And if it takes off, that's another operation.
Do you know how total number of operations, or I'll rephrase that. Do you know what goes into an airport's capacity to handle operations?
Well, again, I'm not a technical expert, but yes, they have to have certain lengths of runway, and they have to have some opposing ones so that people don't run into one another. They have to have lighting. They have to have a control tower. They should have radar, which they didn't even have back in 1994, as I recall, which is another change they made without any environmental impact. But is that the sort of thing you were asking me about, or because I don't get much more technical than that. I apologize if that's what you're looking for.
That's all right. What in your understanding about the airport master plan is proposing changes that would increase airport operations?
Well, excuse me, I didn't see much in the master plan that would actually okay it, but I'd have to go back and read it again now. There are just a lot of things that are conceptual, like 131 airport hangars, the helicopter hangars, I think they are, I'm not sure. But that implies that we're going to have a lot more helicopter based there, which increases the noise level and such. So that's one thing that pops into my mind. If you gave me a few minutes, I could probably come up with some others, but being nervous, it's not flying into my brain right now, and I'm sorry.
Sure, that's okay. I'll ask you about those 131 hangars. I'll show you what's chapter 5 of exhibit 1, the airport layout plan.
I'm not seeing it yet.
Chapter 5, I'm sorry,
Oh,
just a minute.
okay.
Oh, he's showing you that.
Oh, it's showing it over here.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. We've got 3 screens here, sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, now it's on here, okay.
Can you see that document?
Let me put some reading glasses on. It's mighty small here. I can see it though, yes.
We're looking at sheet 3. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner. Just looking at this document, do you see any hangars identified?
In this document, no, and well, actually, I can't. I'd have to look at the whole key, which is extremely small here. Well, it was small everywhere. I remember searching and searching and finally finding them. And I talked with Mr. Paolini about it. And he said, yes, there are a lot of them, but they're just conceptual.
Okay,
But
so
I
the
can't
131 hangars don't appear on
They do
this.
not show in this one. It might be in the approved layout. I can't, which one is this? This is the, what's this one labeled? I'm sorry.
I'll
I can't
represent
see
to you,
it.
and you can see it at the bottom right-hand corner. It's the airport layout plan drawing.
Oh, okay. And then there was another, there were several. Do you remember can you maybe remind me how many pages there were to the master plan?
Hundreds of pages in the master plan update.
Yeah, yeah. And so it took a long time going through several of them and then finding some of them kind of mystery sites because they were so small, and calling and asking staff who were very cooperative and kind. And I remember seeing them. I do not see them in this particular drawing, but there are, how many drawings are there in this plan? There are lots in this plan.
Do you know what or if anything, the airport can construct on the airport property that is not included in this drawing?
I'm not sure what you're asking. Say that again.
As a legal matter, as a matter of FAA regulation, do you know if the airport can construct buildings that are not identified on this drawing?
I do not know that, and I can't make a legal, you guys have been talking about that all along. You're not supposed to make a legal decision. I do not know the FAA regulations on that. Sorry.
Okay. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Griefen, do you have any follow-up?
No redirect for Ms. Coontz. Thank you, Ms. Coontz.
Thank you.
Ms. Coontz, I don't have any questions for you, so, oh, she's already off.
Oh, no, I'm here. I'm back.
Yeah, I don't, thank you for testifying today. I don't have any questions. Who's your next witness and how do you want to proceed? Do you want to take a break or do you want to, who's your next witness and how long will the person take? Let me ask that.
Our next witness is Roseen, and I anticipate at the most an hour, but maybe between a half hour and an hour total. Probably a half hour.
And then they'll be cross, right?
Yeah.
That could put us to 4:30 if we have a small break, or counsel for the port. How do you have any idea? Well, you may not have any idea how long you take on cross-examination.
Less than direct, I can assure you of that much, but
Well, there we go.
I might benefit from a small break but it would
Okay,
I would
well,
only need
let's,
5 minutes.
Okay, well, let's do 10 minutes. It's 2:40 now. Let's come back at 2:50 and then we'll try to get done today. Who was your witness after him?
We do not have any more witnesses other than Jim Matthew, who we've scheduled for the 25th of July. So
okay,
we're
that
done
would-
with this week's
Okay, I
witnesses.
think that would work, and then we can go with the port witnesses tomorrow.
Right.
Okay, let's take a 10-minute break. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So you're going to call Mr. Roseen?
Yes,
I see him there.
he is ready to go.
Okay, and do you have it? And you think I'll take 30 minutes?
Well, that's
Beautiful.
that's the shortest it will take.
You're going to aspire to. You're going to aspire.
I'm
to-
aspiring. Yes, that's my goal, but
Okay, go ahead.
it's hard to know. I have
Yeah.
a bunch of
ahead.
questions here.
I have his resume in front of me. You can go into it for the record if you want, but
hey,
Oh,
Go
if
ahead.
you want us to skip that, we
does Mr. Pierce Wright, do you have any problem with, I think is the resume an exhibit or it's in your pleadings, Ms. Newman?
it's exhibit 65.
Let me see if it's been objected to.
yeah,
We haven't objected to
Yeah.
that exhibit.
I'll actually be handling.
It's been admitted. Mr. Roseen, I don't mind hearing oral relation of credentials, but in this case, I'm trying to speed up the hearing. So it's been admitted. I have it in front of me. So why don't we skip that and just
Okay.
go
Sounds
ahead.
great, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
I have to let me quickly scan it to see if I have any conflict with anyone who's done work with. Give me a quick, I'm looking at the projects he's worked on. A lot of them are in New England, so not here, I think. I don't see a problem. Go ahead then. Thank you.
Okay. And just for the record, Mr. Roseen, the examiner just mentioned that you have experience in New England. You also have experience and familiarity with Washington law and Washington requirements associated with stormwater.
I
I
hate to
do.
interject, but I don't believe we've sworn in the witness.
Oh, I'm
Oh.
sorry.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you very
figured that.
much.
No problem.
Mr. Roseen, I'm sorry. Could you please raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth in the matter before me today?
I do.
Okay, very good. Thanks for reminding me of that. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
And,
Examiner.
could you spell your name also for the record?
First name Robert, Robert. Last name Roseen, Roseen.
Okay, and you heard my question about Washington?
I did. Yeah.
What-
Yeah, it's true that the bulk of my work is in the Northeast, but I tend to work all over the country, and I've worked a lot in the Northwest. I'm actually born and raised in the Northwest, and still visit often my family out there. And I've worked for the Department of Ecology, actually on their board of external reviewers. The Washington State Stormwater Center was based on the University of New Hampshire Stormwater Center that I designed, and I did some consulting during the development of the Washington State Stormwater Center, and I was on the board of external reviewers for the TAPE program for a number of years. The TAPE program is I can never remember what that stands for, the Technology Assistant Protocol for Ecology, and it's a BMP evaluation board. I've worked for the Seattle Public Utilities, and
Okay,
I've
I think
done
that's
SEPA reviews and
covers
things
it.
of that sort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
All right.
The record, the record should, so I don't have a conflict, but I did, I did work with the Department of Ecology, but I'm looking at your resume, I think pre your time, and I've done legislative work with Seattle Public Utilities, but I don't recall being involved with Mr. Roseen at all, and that was 15 or so years ago, if my memory is correct. So I don't see a conflict, but I wanted the parties to know that.
Thank you. All right, well, I will just dive in then. Are you familiar with the proposal that's the subject of this hearing?
I am, yes.
And did you review the master plan update for the Olympia Airport? It's a draft that's in the record, Exhibit 1.
I did, yes.
And did you review the MDNS environmental checklist for the master plan update?
I did, yes.
Okay, I am going to share the screen. I have Exhibit 3 up on my screen, and for the sake of timeliness, I'm just going to refer you to the environmental checklist answers related to stormwater and then ask you for your reaction, but this will take a minute because I just want to point out the answers. You just said you'd read this, so you're familiar with this document?
I am, yes.
So as I read this to you, this won't be the first time you see this
That's
question.
correct.
Okay. So I just want to point out on page 13 and 14 is the section associated with surface water impacts in the environmental checklist. And you'll see it's highlighted here that each question is answered with the answer. Adoption of the airport master plan update will not by itself authorize work over, in, or adjacent to the described waters. The potential for environmental impacts associated with future construction projects included in the airport master plan update will be evaluated on a case-by-case basis at the time such projects are proposed. And then that's the answer to all of the questions on surface water. And then I'm going to also go to, there's a second section, 028, page 028, which is the supplemental sheet for non-project actions. And again, it says adoption of the airport master plan update will not by itself result in increased stormwater runoff. Each new development, same answer. Do you have any concerns as a stormwater engineer, and based on your experience and knowledge, do you have any concerns about this approach with respect to an assessment of stormwater impacts prior to adoption of the master plan update and the designation of a preferred alternative plan?
I do have concerns as it relates to the MDNS determination. It would seem to me that essentially what we need to evaluate is be able to determine that there will be no significant adverse impacts or any impacts can be mitigated by BMPs. And so it seems that the approval of an MDNS at this point does not include any of the information that would be required to come to that type of conclusion. And in particular, the idea of a project by project approval raises a lot of concerns, and I suspect we'll spend a lot of time talking about that. But the project by project approval in and of itself is problematic.
You mean deferring it to project by project instead of doing it now?
Yes, that's right. Instead of doing it now.
What are your concerns about that?
Well, the concerns with the project by project approval are that for an MDNS determination, first of all, we have to look at cumulative. Well, there's really two aspects to it. So from an MDNS determination, one component of that is the cumulative impacts assessment. Okay, so cumulative by nature means we're supposed to be looking at it from the overall big picture. What is the total pollutant load for the project? What is going to be, how much impervious cover are we proposing? And to do it on a site by site basis, by simply by nature or project by project, that's not cumulative, and we're supposed to be looking at the cumulative impacts. So that's that's the primary one in it. But another one that we're going to speak a fair amount is that this area is under has a TMDL, the total maximum daily load, the Deschutes River,
Okay,
and that is
before
particularly
we,
relevant to this project.
yeah, so let's step away from maybe your answer to my question, and can you explain what TMDL means and how it's related to the Deschutes River?
Okay. So currently, in the current situation, the TMDL really has no relevance to the airport. The airport has what's referred to as a conditional, what is it referred to? A conditional
No exposure?
no exposure exemption, which means that no permit is required for a site that doesn't discharge. There's no NIPD's
Can I just
jurisdiction.
slow you just for 1 second? When you're
Sure,
saying
please.
no permit is required,
No stormwater permit.
what permit are you referring to specifically?
Yes, thank you. There's no discharge, no stormwater permit. There's no jurisdictional element to a site that doesn't discharge.
Are you relating to this to industrial uses only or municipal?
Oh, I'm speaking specifically to the Olympia Airport. So
And the
more-
conditional, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So the no exposure exemption applies to the Olympia Airport. So currently, they don't have a stormwater permit
Okay.
for the industrial side of the airport. But if there was discharge to the site from the site, then they would be subject to the requirements of the TMDL. So you asked me what a TMDL is. A TMDL, and I'll try and keep it quick. It's a complicated piece, but it's actually very simple. So a TMDL is essentially it's a watershed scale assessment of a particular water body and its carrying capacity, right? Or what they refer to as an assimilative capacity. A TMDL is triggered when a water body is impaired. So that's the Deschutes River is impaired for a lot of things, but what's relevant to us for this conversation is temperature and dissolved oxygen. And so what a TMDL does is it assesses the carrying capacity of this water body and then works backwards. It essentially establishes a diet for those pollutants, for those contaminants. And then for all the relevant permits that are out there, every NIPD's permit, that can be a wastewater permit, it can be a stormwater permit, it could be a construction general permit. All these permits, it could be a municipal stormwater permit, an industrial permit. All these permits then have elements of the TMDL embedded in them. And those
Okay.
elements of the TMDL establish limits, hard limits for temperature and contaminants that will impact dissolved oxygen. And the airport absolutely generates temperature and dissolved oxygen problems if it's
Let me ask
forced
you a
to
quick
discharge.
question before, what does TMDL stand for?
Total maximum daily load.
And is the Deschutes River, has it been declared impaired under the Clean Water Act?
That's right. It has, yeah.
And so is there a TMDL, which it sounded like you said that's a
2021
limit?
TMDL for the Deschutes River, yes.
Okay, so they've placed limits on how many pollutants can go into the Deschutes River total. Is that?
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right. And the particularly relevant one here is the Tumwater MS4. So that's the City of Tumwater, their municipal stormwater permit.
Okay.
Is particularly relevant here.
Okay, and then right now you said that the airport property is infiltrating all of their stormwater currently. Is that what you said, or I heard you say?
That's what we believe. Yeah.
Is TMDL the kind of limits on any runoff into the Deschutes River relevant if they're infiltrating all their water?
Exactly. So the answer to that simply is no, because they have a no exposure exemption, which means there's no offsite discharge. The restrictions for the Deschutes River are not relevant to the airport in its current state. But
Okay.
if that changes, which is my concern here, if that changes, it becomes immediately relevant, and we can talk about that.
So, when you say if that changes, what makes you think that that could change?
Right. So this no exposure certification or exemption relies on the fact that the industrial side of the operations of the airport is entirely based on infiltration, and that's what the SEPA checklist says. There's no risk to stormwater; everything is infiltrated, and that's it. But what we know is that there's really two important factors here. One of them is statewide limitations, county level limitations, Thurston County level limitations for infiltration systems are seriously restricted for industrial uses. So all sorts of industrial uses simply are not allowed to infiltrate. That's item one. Item two is the Western Washington Stormwater Manual, under which we're operating still, prohibits the use of infiltration systems for all sorts of industrial uses as well. And the immediate ones that we come up with are the refueling operations, the deicing operations, and then we have this general aviation industrial use as well. And we don't know what that is, but we know that generally speaking, industrial operations are prohibited from infiltration. So with those prohibitions, right, where does that water go? If we can't infiltrate it, that water needs to go somewhere. Okay.
Can I ask you a quick question on that same, the checklist, which I'm going to share again on page 28 says, new development implemented in accordance with the airport master plan update may include elements that could involve production, storage, or release of toxic or hazardous substances that pose an environmental health hazard, such as fuel spills, handling of hazardous waste, etc. Can they infiltrate stormwater when they are releasing toxic or hazardous substances from the property?
No, it would have to be. So typically the way that would be that, on most industrial facilities, anything that's exposed, right, it just goes through some sort of treatment BMP, right? It could go through a biofilter, it could go through a wet pond, it could go through a manufactured treatment device. There's a lot of different BMPs that exist. And then it's discharged to the to surface waters. There's no immediate streams or anything coming off of the airport, so that really leaves the MS4. The MS4 flanks the airport. And so I'm assuming, I don't know because there's not a stormwater management plan that was submitted as part of this, but I'm assuming that the non-industrial side of the airport all just drains to the MS4. So all these new operations that are going to be constructed would logically have to connect to the MS4 because we're sitting on a critical aquifer recharge area, which has all of its own restrictions. And again, these industrial operations are not supposed to be infiltrating into an aquifer recharge area.
Why, coming back to the beginning, you said you had concerns about the review, deferring review, not doing stormwater impact review now before they adopt this development plan, and their decision to review the impacts on a project by project basis. Everything you've just said, why does it matter bringing it all back to that?
Okay. So kind of high level again. The planning is essential for figuring out which direction we're going. And once we set out a master plan, we know where our operations, generally speaking, are all located. We have our general aviation, we have our headquarters, we have our industrial uses, we have all these different things that are laid out. So we're sort of locked into certain areas, and that matters from a lot of reasons. But let's talk first about high level, and then we'll talk about site specific stuff. So high level is it's going to determine whether or not if we're actually infiltrating everything based on what those particular land uses are. Some land uses are allowed to infiltrate, some land uses are not. And then it's going to determine because if we're not infiltrating, we then are going down a completely different path, which is not even contemplated in the master planning update, which is if we're not infiltrating, that's going to trigger an industrial stormwater general permit. If it triggers an industrial stormwater general permit, they're going to have to prepare a stormwater pollution prevention plan. All of those things are typical pieces of a SEPA review process. You have to know where these operations are going. And right now, we're sort of just taking their word for it. We don't know where most of these things are. They're not called out on a plan. We can look at aerial imagery. We have a little bit of information, but we don't really have a good understanding of what the operations are, where they will exist, what the risks will be. So we're either going down a path of triggering an industrial stormwater permit, okay, or we're going down the path of trying to infiltrate everything, but then being limited by what sort of operations can happen on those properties to still achieve infiltration, which I have real doubts as to how they can even do that. They have a refueling operation right now that shouldn't be reached, that should be discharging to, in my opinion, should be going to an MS4. Their refueling operation should not be discharging to an infiltration basin, but presumably it is, because that's what we've been told. Same thing with their deicing. Their deicing operation is not allowed to infiltrate, but we've been told they infiltrate everything. If it doesn't infiltrate, where does it go? It should be going to the MS4. We don't know this. This information hasn't been provided.
What information is required to properly consider impacts at this stage, this planning stage, and what would be the proper approach?
So I think the types of things that would normally be done on this would be we would look at the future development areas, right? What are the land uses? What are the areas? What are the specific geographic locations? That gives us an idea of where the water's running to. What types of restrictions we would have with respect to easements and wetlands and other sensitive resources, setbacks. We'd have a sense of the amount of planned impervious areas, so rooftops, parking lots, etc. That gives us a good idea of what types of pollutants will be generated, right? If this site is if it's mostly landscaped area versus industrial activities that can generate high pollutant loads, that all matters. It matters a little less in the infiltration. Well, I shouldn't say that. It matters in the infiltration side, and it also matters very much on the TMDL side.
And why? Can you just explain again why does it matter on the TMDL side?
It matters on the TMDL side because the TMDL has let me ask you another question. How might it impact or change the port's decision about how many acres should be used for industrial or where the industrial should occur, kind of the planning stage? How would an analysis now potentially impact that decision? Okay. So again, it comes down to the simple question of are we discharging this water to the surface water, and most likely MS4, or are we infiltrating? What we can infiltrate is typically determined based on what the land use is. So for example, if we had an electronics production facility, electric part production, there's a lot of electroplating and there's heavy metals and acids and all these sorts of things. Now, generally speaking, that's all covered, but they have to discharge the waste somewhere. And until we know what these industrial operations are, we don't really have a good understanding of what the limitations are going to be. And so let me give you an example. So de-icing operations, knowing where the de-icing operation, so we know that they're proposing roughly a 40,000 square foot de-icing operation. We also know, I think I understand that they're not really following the stormwater management manual for Western Washington on that. They're typically what we look for de-icing operations is that we cover the area, right? So that means you can prevent runoff from commingling with the de-icing. But it sounds like what they're proposing is a 40,000 square foot area off the side of the runway. It's not covered. So that area, 40,000 square feet, can generate over 700,000 gallons a year. Where's that water going? I've worked on airports where glycol, there's no real good way to treat glycol. The best, like if you look at the Western Washington Stormwater Manual, the way they treat it is they say cover it, limit the amount of it, and then recycle it. We don't have a BMP like a bioretention system or a retention pond that removes the BOD. That's biological oxygen demand. BOD is principally what causes dissolved oxygen problems. So BOD causes our TMDL problem. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're generating 800,000 gallons a year, more or less, of contaminated runoff, where are you putting that? And you certainly can't put glycol into the ground on a critical aquifer recharge area. So that's a big question for me right there. That should be part of a master planning piece. What is our consideration on that? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that's one example. The other one is a big piece is typically we do soil infiltration or infiltration feasibility studies. So you look at an area, you examine the soils, you find out where the best areas are to put your infiltration systems. That's not being done. We don't know. Yeah, that's not being done. That hasn't been part of the process. So those are kind of two really key elements that are part of it.
Okay. Do you need to fully understand the total impact of development combined, which you were talking about, the cumulative impact? Do you need to do a holistic examination of the impervious areas and pollutant load impacts at this stage of the process now
I don't understand how it could be done any other way. So if we think of what is a cumulative impact assessment, right? A cumulative impact assessment is what is the overall impact of this project? Cumulative impacts are required to be holistic by nature. That's what SEPA is telling us. And furthermore, it's what the TMDL tells us. The TMDL is almost it's almost the same thing, but it's triggered by a different mechanism. TMDL is just at a watershed scale, so it's at the Deschutes River scale as opposed to the master plan scale in this case. So yes, you need to have if you don't know how much pavement you're generating, how much pollutant load you're generating, I don't know how it's possible to come to the conclusion that there would be no adverse impacts. There is a scenario out there that exists that the master plan could be in conflict with that requirement, right?
why is that?
Because they're generating more pollutants than they're allowed.
In total?
In total, right? Because one thing is if they can't put it into the ground, well, let's assume for a moment that they can put it in the ground. No, actually, we can't do that. Let's assume that their intention is to put it in the ground. They cannot put certain things in the ground. They cannot put glycol in the ground. They can't put supposed clean runoff from a refueling operation into the ground. You're just not allowed to do that, not in a critical aquifer recharge area. So there's certain limitations as to what they can put in the ground. So then if you're going to put it into the Tumwater MS4, it triggers the TMDL. They have, I'm really going in deep here, but they have waste load allocation. So that's your diet, that's your budget. And they can't just use it. They're only given a certain amount, and they're going to have to work with the City of Tumwater to figure out even what's allowable. Now, generally speaking, they're allowed to do it if they're implementing LID technologies, bioretention, biofiltration, all this other stuff. But there's going to be some important engineering requirements in there, because if they're using LID biofiltration, they're still not allowed to put it into the ground for certain things. So there's a lot of details here that are just
Okay.
hard to wrap our heads around. So again, back to the, can we make a statement that there's no significant adverse impacts at this stage? I don't see how that can be done. And I don't see how you can do it on a project by project basis, because you could paint yourself into a corner where very simply you cannot have certain elements of the master plan because of your restrictions on your permit.
Is it possible that project by project, each of the future projects could each individually have insignificant impacts, but then if you consider them all together, they have significant stormwater impacts?
Yes, absolutely. And more importantly than that, the history of a TMDL, total maximum daily loads, is exactly what you just described, which is that it was recognized a long time ago, prior to TMD or project by project evaluation was failing our water bodies, meaning, okay, you give this wastewater plant 8 milligrams per liter nitrogen, and then you give this wastewater. That's fine if you have 2 or 3 wastewater plants, but what if you have 50? Okay. So the whole point of a cumulative assessment on the SEPA side, or the whole point of a watershed scale assessment on the TMDL side, is you're looking at what the diet is, what this water body can handle. You can't do that if you do it on a project by project basis. It's impossible. Or I shouldn't say it's not impossible, but you could run out at some point.
And
again, my larger point is, from what I'm understanding now, I can't imagine a situation where this project is not going to trigger an industrial stormwater general permit. And that part alone should be should be the reason that the MDNS determination should be remanded and pushed off to a later date, in my perspective, not until we have that information.
Okay, and I just want to make sure, because I can't remember if you said this, but the Deschutes River is impaired for which particular pollutants?
So temperature, right? Okay, and actually we haven't talked a whole lot about that, but so the best way to manage temperature is infiltration, which is what they're doing. So that's great. But what do they do for the amount of water that is not, they can't do that. So temperature is a big one. And for example, this is another aspect of master planning. You can't use stormwater ponds, retention ponds, to manage temperature. They actually make it worse. You put runoff into a retention pond and it gets even hotter. So if you are going to discharge water to an MS4 and you have a temperature TMDL, they would likely have to be doing subsurface storage, detention, infiltration, something along that time, because it has to go below ground for it to cool down. Or they would have to plant 1 million trees somewhere else. Shading is another way that they do it. So sorry, TMDL has 2 things that we're concerned about. There's more in that TMDL, but there's 2 things that we're concerned about, which is temperature, and the other one is dissolved oxygen. And dissolved oxygen is affected directly by nutrients. So in our case, we're really concerned about nitrogen and phosphorus, and BOD from glycol.
And those are indeed potential pollutants that would be, from the materials you've reviewed, that you see could be emitted from the or any development of the property in this development plan.
That's right. That's exactly right.
Now, have you reviewed the spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan for the airport?
I have, yes.
Is that relevant to the discussion today?
It is, because it seems to be inconsistent with the SEPA checklist and the MPU, and the reason for that is the SEPA checklist.
Let me ask you, before you say that, can you explain what a spill prevention, control, and countermeasure plan is?
Sure. Yeah. Thank you. So, put simply, it's a spill plan for a refueling facility, and it looks very standard. And there's nothing wrong with it. What's wrong with it is that it's inconsistent with the statement that there is only infiltration on the at the airport, right? So there's not supposed to be infiltration around refueling facilities. That's supposed to be treated and supposed to go somewhere else.
And so does the spill prevention control and countermeasure plan for the airport indicate that they're actually treating that and discharging it rather than infiltrating it?
It's unclear. Well, so it's unclear as to where the water goes, but the water, it's a fairly typical system. You have tanks, you have secondary containment, and then if there's any spills, which is always a small amount, a little bit here and there, aside from the catastrophic stuff is what we really worry about. But even small amounts, you have an oil water separator. So it's a device that's inline. Water goes through the oil water separator. That is discharged in a pipe, and I can't tell where that pipe goes. I don't have a stormwater plan for the site, so all I can assume is that it's going to an infiltration basin right now.
Okay.
That in my mind should not be allowable in the Tumwater regs for the Thurston County regs for critical area recharge, critical aquifer recharge area.
So is it fair to say you're just kind of raising some red flags here?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would think that what would happen with that water that comes through the refueling area, that should be going to the MS4, right?
Okay.
Because the MS4, that's going somewhere else. They're doing some monitoring of that, but it's not a risk to an aquifer if the overflow.
Did I ask you this already? I can't remember to say what MS4 stands for. You've been referring to that quite a bit.
Yeah, sorry. Stormwater is maddening in all the acronyms. We've done it.
Yeah.
But MS4 stands for Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. So
Okay.
it is EPA or EPA's stormwater permit for municipalities, and then there's phase 1 and phase 2 of these. So large cities, smaller cities.
Okay. And is there a stormwater management program for the airport?
So yes and no. I would call it so there is the Port of Olympia or the Olympia Airport has a stormwater management program. Supposedly, it's a 7-page document. So normally you would have a SWIP, Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, which is a 200 or 300 page piece that has a lot of details. The stormwater because they have their no exposure exemption. That's why it's allowed to be very, very light. But notably, their stormwater management program doesn't even mention infiltration. There's no mention of infiltration.
Mention outfalls or receiving water bodies?
It does. It says that they've mapped their outfalls. They know which outfalls are going to their receiving waters. So it's unclear. I'm going to answer what I think it is because it's less than what we think it is, I'm sure. Remember, the non-industrial side of the airport I don't know this to be a fact, but I'm assuming is allowed to discharge to the MS4, the non-industrial side. But what I'm talking about is what happens there are certain aspects of the industrial side that shouldn't be infiltrated that probably should be going to the MS4.
Okay. And do you think we've covered everything that you kind of bopped around, and I'm not sure that we missed? There was a de-icing discussion.
Yeah, we covered de-icing. We covered SPCC. Yeah, I think we've got everything.
Okay. I have no further questions.
I may have questions, but I'll allow the port lawyer. Mr. Roseen will have the port Olympia lawyers cross-examine you, please.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
Good afternoon, Dr. Roseen, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I never get that respect anywhere.
Well,
when I was younger, I used to wear
glasses
just so that I could get it. Now I really have to wear glasses.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to be flippant. There was an engineer I used to work with who insisted on being called doctor, and I asked her if we had a medical emergency, would she assist us? And She just glared at me, but we can call you doctor. Go ahead.
All right,
you.
Dr. Roseen, kind of as an initial matter, did you prepare a written report of your opinions?
I did not.
Any reason why not?
No, not really, other than the fact that I wasn't asked to.
Okay. Okay.
I think probably the simplest piece would be, yeah, I know why. It wouldn't have been that we wouldn't have had time to do it before any reporting deadline. So that would be the real reason, I suspect.
Okay. And so before we get too deep into it here, now, do you have any, I think you've mentioned master planning before, but do you have any particular expertise in airport master planning?
No, I review plans all the time. Airport master plans. I've worked on airports. Have I worked on an airport master plan before? I have not.
Okay. Have you worked on an EIS for an airport master plan before?
I have not. I've reviewed plenty of EISs, but I have not worked on an airport EIS. No.
Okay, you haven't worked on an airport EIS. Okay.
No, I have not.
So, let's see, kind of get into first question. So talk a little bit about what you need, what we what are sort of the unknown or the known unknowns here. And I believe you said that, is it correct to say that you believe that for a full evaluation, we need to know more about the specifics of future locations?
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And we also need to know more about impervious surfaces in order to have a full environmental evaluation.
Yes.
Okay.
More or less, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And so just generally we need to know more before we can come to a full, to a full environmental assessment then.
That's right. It seemed an MDNS determination at this point just seems very curious to me. Yeah, in that there's an enormous lack of information that would and so on one hand, the deferral to project by project basis makes sense because we'd have that detailed information. But the problem with the project by project basis is what I've just described earlier, which is, we're going to run it. We run afoul of the need for cumulative impact assessment, and we potentially run afoul of the TMDL requirements.
Okay. And you mentioned de-icing in particular. Do you recall where in the master plan update, the proposed master plan update, de-icing was discussed?
I believe it's in Appendix 4.1.
Okay. So it is in Appendix 4.1. And so I'm going to put up an exhibit here. I'm going to share my screen in order to do so. If I choose correctly here. Okay, so I'll go ahead and represent to you that this is exhibit previously marked as exhibit 1, but the third chapter of that exhibit. And you reviewed this section, correct?
Section 3, I don't know. Actually, I did not review Section 3. I mostly no, I would say I'm not really familiar with Section 3. I'm familiar with Section 4 and Appendix 4.1. And and then I reviewed a bit of Chapter 5 as well, but didn't find it terribly helpful.
Okay. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here in chapter 3. Actually, I'm going to scroll down. Here we go. So, and we've already gotten in trouble once today for having folks read large sections, but I'm just going to direct your attention to section 3.3.3 de-icing.
Yeah, I see it. There we go. That makes more sense. I'd like to hear that. So
Okay.
that makes sense with respect to the infiltration currently.
I'm sorry,
okay.
but which page? Actually, I'm not opposed in general to reading certain sections discreetly, but which page are you on? I'm sorry.
We are on 3-16.
Wrong document here, I guess. It's chapter 3.
Yes, chapter 3. Okay, and if I could just direct your attention to the bolded section at the bottom of 3.3.3, you could just read the two sentences there.
Yeah, current demand at the airport does not necessitate the need for a de-icing facility. If in the future the need arises, the airport should consider installing an aircraft de-icing chemical recovery system.
Okay, and is a fair interpretation of that there is no de-icing facility planned at present?
No, what I read in section 4.1 was that 40,000 square feet was planned off the edge of a commercial property, and that there were sufficient setbacks and all of that.
Okay.
So that's what raises my concern. If there's no de-icing, then that concern goes away. But yeah, my understanding was that there's 40,000 square foot pad planned for.
Okay.
And that 40,000 square foot pad would, the way as it was described, I mean, there wasn't a lot of information, but it didn't seem as if it would meet the current stormwater manual requirements for de-icing. As I mentioned earlier, there's no real good, there's really no treatment for glycol. The problem with glycol is it's water soluble. So when it mixes with water, it's basically contaminating water. So, and we have the issue of, the easiest way to de-ice is at the gates. We just spray it on, but that doesn't work when you have a critical aquifer recharge area.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and close that down again. And so you mentioned 4-1. Do most of your concerns arise out of that appendix 4-1?
For de-icing, sure, yes.
Okay. So, and you mentioned the potential. Oh, so you discussed how you believe that it will become necessary to work with the City of Tumwater to meet the demands of the TMDL, correct?
If for any runoff that's generated that is prohibited from infiltration, that water's got to go somewhere, and presumably that would be going to the MS4. That's the most feasible engineering solution. Yes, there's other things. The airport could build a treatment plant, which on occasion people do that, and then they do aquifer recharge with that. But that now we're just postulating. So yes, my thought is that we have all sorts of industrial uses proposed that are prohibited for infiltration. Where does that water go?
And how do we know what it will be constructed that that is not appropriate for infiltration?
Well, yeah, that is part of the question, right? I mean, for an MD&S determination, there has to be this idea of no adverse impacts, but how do we know? So we have what's referred to as general, I can't remember what the term is, but it's general aviation industrial uses, I think is what the category is. A little over 200 acres of that. And then we also have the statement in the SEPA checklist that it's expected that there will be the generation of hazardous substances. So, you know, not the least of which, actually, we don't even have to even do that. Let's just take one big step back. The industrial stormwater general permit lists airports as generators of hazardous substance. There's sector S is airports. So just by nature of the particular industrial use, it's categorized as such. Do we know what those are yet? I don't know what the general aviation industrial uses are going to be, but if it is in that industrial class, that we know that there are prohibitions both on the stormwater manual side, the Thurston County code and then Thurston County code for the critical aquifer recharge areas. Sorry.
And is it correct that SEPA is reviewing changes as a result of the action that is under this review, that is currently under review?
I'm not sure I understand the question. Would you mind again?
It is correct that the statute under which this, in your understanding of what's going on right now, that the statute that is governing this particular review is SEPA, Washington State Environmental Policy Act.
I believe so. Yeah, right. I mean, I think it all. I think the MDNS is all. My understanding. I'm not a SEPA expert, but I've looked at lots of MDNS determinations. But so my understanding is that an MDNS determination emanates from the SEPA review requirement. Yes.
Yeah, and you mentioned I didn't do a good job of writing it down, but it's the general stormwater permit. What was that again?
Yeah, it's called an industrial stormwater general permit.
Okay, and is that in your understanding a federal requirement, a federally issued permit?
I'm going to object to the extent that if he doesn't know the answer, I don't want him to speculate.
Well,
I can do it.
Okay, if you know the answer,
I'm sorry.
that's
Let me ask
fine.
the hearing examiner. Sorry.
Just wait a moment. I'll let him answer the question. Actually, I was going to have, I think that was my understanding. So I was going to ask that question, but if he doesn't know that, he can say he doesn't know.
Okay.
Right.
It's complicated. I know.
It's complicated. So I believe the way it all works is that the state, I'm sorry, the feds write the permit and that the state implements them. Okay. Or because there is a national multi-sector general permit, right? And then the states either adopt or adapt. So I believe in Washington, the industrial stormwater general permit is an adapted federal permit, but it's definitely it's implemented by the state.
And so, and you reviewed the master plan.
I did.
Within your understanding, how is the master plan changing the allowed uses at the airport?
I don't believe it's changing the allowed uses, but I believe it's expanding the allowed uses.
Could you explain what you mean by that a bit?
Right.
Can I just object at this point? We don't have a foundation for this because Mr. Roseen said he did not focus on chapter 3, which is the existing uses. I do not believe that Mr. Roseen has reviewed the 2013 master plan update. And I don't think he has established in his testimony that he is that familiar with the current uses on the airport property. So I don't think he has the ability to answer that question.
Well,
we don't have a foundation.
May I respond?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just very simply, I would respond that one of Ms. Newman's first questions to Dr. Roseen was whether or not he had reviewed the master plan update. And, I can understand if his answer is, I don't know, but I think that we've laid foundation that even if he hasn't read every word of it, he has reviewed it.
He did testify that he did not read chapter 3.
Well, look, I think if he if he has difficulty answering the question or can't answer the question, he can explain why and whether he's familiar with the background documents or studies that are predicate of the question. So I don't know if that makes sense, but so I'm going to let him. I understand your objection, Ms. Newman. I'm going to let the question be lodged. I forgot what it is, and then the Dr. Roseen can say whether he's capable of answering or not, or qualified to answer. You may have to restate the question.
Like my last question was simply a request for him to expand on his previous answer, which was an answer to the question, how will the master plan update change what uses are allowable in at OLM?
Yeah,
Right.
And if
So
he doesn't know what's allowable, he's going to have difficulty answering. But if he has a sense of that, he can answer that. Go ahead.
So again, I haven't reviewed chapter 3, but what I have reviewed that I'm reasonably familiar with is the chapter 4 preferred alternative. So essentially, my testimony revolves around the preferred alternative. And when you get much beyond that, yeah, I will fade. But so for the preferred alternative, what I'm basing my statement on is that there's 200 plus acres that are proposed for general aviation industrial use. And we could pull it up and we could go through that. I don't remember all of what there are, but there's a lot of acreage that's planned for expansion. And so I think where you're going with this is it a new use to that? I would say, I don't believe it is, but I can't say that it isn't. But for sure, what we're talking about is an expansion. And from my understanding of permits, expansion or change of use both are trigger permit. Yeah, change of use is an important element, and so is an expansion.
Yeah, but you think that, in your professional opinion, the ideal time to do this sort of analysis would be at the point at which zoning usage has changed?
I don't know if you're trying to phrase what characterizes testimony or ask a new question, because that's a mischaracterization of his testimony.
I'm asking a new question.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't think I would say that it's at the time of a zoning change. My point is simply that it doesn't seem to me that we have the necessary information for an MDNS determination based on the lack of detail that exists, and that for us to come to the conclusion of no adverse impacts, we need a lot more information. And unfortunately, I mean, as I said, it makes sense in some respects to wait for the project by project evaluation, except that it runs afoul of the cumulative impacts assessment, and it runs afoul of the TMDL. So I don't know how. So I don't understand it. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
Yeah. So you think that
work.
You think that we would actually need more information to make any sort of SEPA determination?
That's correct. Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Could you repeat that question, please? I'm sorry.
I asked if we require more information in order to make a SEPA, any sort of SEPA determination.
Okay, now I understand his answer. Go ahead.
I'm just reviewing my notes really quickly here.
And I'm reviewing some notes here.
So if we were essentially, if we were to discount, just pretend it's not happening, all the build out of hangars and industrial area or any kind of construction at all on the airport site. Do you have any remaining concerns?
Would you mind asking that again? I'm not entirely sure what you're asking.
Yeah.
One more time. Sorry.
Essentially, in a world where there was a piece of paper titled the airport plan or the airport master plan update, but there was no build out essentially or construction required by that document, would you still have concerns?
I don't know. I think that there's so many unknowns in there. I don't honestly feel like I can answer it. I mean, it basically sounds like you're talking about, would I be concerned if there was a lot line adjustment? No, I'm not. I wouldn't be concerned if there's boundary changes, but a plan that commits to certain activities that, yeah. So I'm not trying to be evasive here. I don't know. It's hard for me to say.
No further questions at this time.
Ms. Newman, you can have redirect. I have some questions, so I don't know if you'd rather I go first.
I will wait for you, Mr. Examiner. You could go before me.
You prefer to wait for me?
I'd prefer to wait. I'd prefer to go after you if that's okay.
You might have to clarify what I'm asking.
Okay.
So Dr. Roseen, I'm just a little, I just need a little clarification, not in my own mind. So is it your understanding that the Clean Water Agency for the state of Washington is the Department of Ecology? You're aware of that?
Yes.
And they have delegated authority under the state statute from the
Yes.
Environmental Policy Protection Administration for various things.
Yes.
And the attorneys can educate me on this later, but is my understanding correct that the Department of Ecology has issued a national pollution discharge elimination system, municipal stormwater general permit, one for Eastern Washington, one for Western Washington, or do you know?
You're pushing me a little bit on there, but yes, I believe there's a Western Washington and an Eastern Washington MS4. I believe, but yeah, that's a little loose on me.
I'm not. It's sort of a legal research issue, so I'm not. I want your opinion, but I'm not going to rely on it totally for this.
Sure.
So, assuming that is the case for Western Washington, do I understand your testimony that is the permit authority that would include this area?
That's exactly right. So the City of Tumwater, the Tumwater MS4 is one of the concerns here. At this stage, it's not relevant because of their no exposure certification. I always call it a certification. Sorry, in the West, on the East Coast, it's called a no exposure certification. The West Coast, you call it a conditional no exposure exemption. But it's that issue's moot currently.
And you did refer to, and in this case, it's my understanding that the City of Tumwater does not have a separate surface water ordinance, but I may be wrong. But it does have an aquifer protection ordinance, which would
That's my understanding.
Right.
Yes.
Well, you referred to the Thurston County aquifer protection, and the county may have one also, but I believe the city has one, and I think
okay,
that may be a reference.